Carson here with the Spook tank. Before I get into today's video, I kind of wanted to remind everybody that we do have a Discord. I know there's not a lot of people in it and it's kind of dead currently. I'm trying to get more people in there, but it is a good resource for people who are new to the hobby or if you're experienced and would like help. Or just ask questions in and get a quicker response. Then my Google form in my card. The link's going to be in the description of this video, so if that's something you're interested in, please don't hesitate in joining that. And yeah. So Betta Sororities, what makes them so appealing to people and why I personally don't recommend them, why I don't agree with them, and why I consider them to be unethical. So first things first, Betta Sororities are exactly what they sound like. They are 5 or more female betas in the same tank. And if we're talking minimums, the absolute bare minimum is a 20-gallon long. However, people who've kept sororities often recommend a minimum of 20 gallons or larger to ensure proper territory size and they do tend to keep their tanks well planted with many places for them to hide. The bigger the tank, the less likely they are going to be to run into each other. But with anything, bigger is better. So a lot of people like the idea of being able to put betas together. They like the idea of having multiple, even though betas are solitary animals. They go, oh, well, it's lonely, so I gotta get it a friend, right? Not necessarily. Depending on the temperament of your beta, like they might do fine in the community tank. But in terms of sororities, like they don't want to be with other betas, and that's just how they are. The success rates of sororities are what drive a lot of people away, and honestly, why I wouldn't even recommend them. The success rates are not so great. Statistically, 80 to 90% of beta sororities fail within the first year, and that leaves 10 to 20% even being successful for only the first year. And that being said, it is very likely that every sorority will fail at some point in time, despite it making past the first year, if it even gets to that point. And overall, past the first year, only 2% of sororities ever succeed. And ultimately, they have a 98% fail rate, and most sororities will fail within 3 to 6 months. Which, when you really get down to it, I don't think anybody really wants to spend all of that money on all of these fish just for it to have a 98% fail rate. That is a very, very, very high fail rate for something that doesn't benefit the fish at all. There is no benefit to the fish. There's no benefit to the betas in sororities at all. Now, the betas that you're seeing in pet stores or really anywhere, wherever you buy them from, these have all been selectively bred for hundreds of years for looks and aggression. It's literally in their genetics to fight with other fish, and females aren't an exception to that. Every beta does have their own temperament, and some may be more fit for a sorority than others, but sororities are already unpredictable and things can change overnight. A fish that was previously non-aggressive temperament-wise, that was doing perfectly fine one day, may wake up one day and choose violence, and oftentimes that results in the rest of the tank also becoming aggressive. Females can fight just as much as males. That's why breeding betas is so dangerous. Even without fighting, they're just going to be in a constant state of stress because they constantly need to establish and maintain a hierarchy. And chronic stress and even short-term stress weakens immune systems, and chronic stress weakens them even more because they're constantly exposed to it. It can make them it weakens their immune systems and it can make them more susceptible to disease and bloat, which is why if one beta gets sick in a sorority, it is likely that the rest are also sick or will also get sick soon after. A prime example of this is Aztec Aquatics. He had a sorority, first to find the next time, but we're talking about the one in his 20-gallon that he did only after all the other ones failed. One of the fish got stress-induced dropsy after he insisted that his fish were not stressed. One of them got stress-induced dropsy. Then 2 others got stress-induced dropsy. And then one of them he said he overfed. Which I guarantee you was bloat. And then probably turned into dropsy. He just didn't want to say, oh yeah, all my fish got stress-induced dropsy. Anyways, that being said, exposing a fish to chronic stress really isn't good for the fish. It has a whole bunch of health issues. They're going to get sick easier. It's just a whole slew of things. And for that, to keep those fish healthy in a high stress situation like that, you have to be constantly on top of the water quality more than you would if you just had like a community tank in there or one beta. Now, there's also the issue of territory. So, female betas are still territorial, and in terms of tanks under 40 gallons or a tank that lacks hiding spots, the aggression can end up being concentrated on specific individuals. And this is why odd numbers are best, and having at least 5 is generally the rule of thumb for sororities. But again, any fish can decide that, oh, I want all of this territory and then leave the rest encroaching on everybody else's. Not to mention, they're just unpredictable regardless of how things are going. Like, they can seem successful for months and even years. But with the chances that a dynamic can just completely collapse overnight because of a shift in hormone, maturity, or even just the introduction of a new fish, there's just way too many variables that you can't control yourself. And that's part of why they have such a high fail rate, because there's just too many variables that you can't control. Like, you can't control the fish's hormones. You can't control the fish's maturity very much unless you put them all from the same thing. Like, it's just really hard to keep going, and there's just way too many variables that, like, it's next to impossible. Now, the setup for these, it can be extremely difficult, as it requires a very specific and demanding conditions, including a heavily planted tank with the line of sight completely broken and a very specific number of fish, again 5 or more in odd numbers. And all of these fish have to come from the same clutch and be raised together, which is something that's very hard to do, especially if you're buying them from PetSmart or Petco, because I guarantee you none of those fish came from the same clutch. Like, you have to go to a reputable breeder who offers sororities, and they will send you fish from the same clutch, and that often ends up being more expensive. So then people will go to like PetSmart and Petco, and the amount of times that I've had somebody come into the PetSmart and tell me, "Oh yeah, I had a sorority and it failed and everything died. Why?" And then I explain to them why, and they're like, "No, you just sold me sick fish," because they're so insistent on doing a sorority and nothing that actually caused it is right in their mind. Anyways, sororities have absolutely no benefit to the fish at all, and it only causes more stress onto them, which ends up, getting them sick at some point. They are quite literally only for our own amusement. So why are we subjecting a fish to more stress and potential injury or death just for our own amusement? Like, it doesn't benefit the fish at all to be in a sorority. It doesn't benefit a solitary species from to be together. That has no benefit at all to the fish. Literally all it does is harm the fish. That's all it does. So why are we continuing to do this when it has absolutely no enrichment value or benefit at all to the fish, and all it's doing is causing more stress and leading to illness or potential injuries or even just death because we want to keep more than one beta together? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. So all in all, I don't consider sororities to be ethical at all. And with the overall 98% fail rate and all the factors contributing to that, I really would not recommend it. And when only 2% ever succeed in the long run, you're only really wasting your money for a 2% chance that it will work in the long run. And the risks outweigh the benefits, and there's already no benefit to the fish at all. Honestly, the only thing happening to these fish is harm, if you really want to get technical about it. It only benefits us as humans. That being said, there's nothing that I can really say to stop somebody from doing a sorority, but I hope that, you take this into account if you're considering doing one. And I recommend doing research and doing lengthy research into it before you do it.